Welcome to SwitchCorner, my name is Alex and today we're taking a look at Assassin's Creed The Ezio Collection on the Nintendo Switch. Now we're going back to near the beginning of the series with this collection, so how does it stand up and is it going to be worth an add to the library? Well, hit subscribe and join us here on SwitchCorner for reviews and deals weekly, and let's get started. Before we do get into this today then, I need to clarify here. A big thank you first off to Ubisoft for this review copy, appreciated as always, but they only had Assassin's Creed 2 live for playthrough, meaning this review I would consider it a review of that entry with a dash of information around the other two games included. Assassin's Creed 2 then was the introduction of, for many, the best lead from any entry, Ezio, who finds himself in Renaissance-era Italy. We will also then still see Desmond briefly outside the Animus, the device that allows us to connect with an ancestor, but thankfully these are very small and brief moments, and that is a huge improvement over what was the original game. The second entry though, just an exceptional introduction to not only a fantastic lead, but overall an intriguing story that it's easy to get behind. Think here uncovering our family history and heading on an adventure of revenge after someone kills pretty much all immediate family members outside of our mother and sister. The collection then includes Brotherhood and Revelations, as well as two short films. These, they continue Ezio's story, dialing up the threat of the Templars and dismantling their influence, and will also then seek to understand more about Altaïr, who was the lead from the original game. They do honestly get weaker story-wise as they do go on, but it's still very easy to see why Ezio is so appreciated. Gameplay, and again, like I want to clarify here, I can only speak to Assassin's Creed 2. I'll also be keeping this relatively high level. It's a huge game with an often overwhelming amount of options. I'll also be giving a good sense of general performance on the Switch. So much like the original game, Assassin's Creed 2, it continues with its open world theme. If you were gaming around that original release like me, that first game, it was kind of hyped beyond belief, and for many, including myself, a disappointment. The second, I feel like it achieved the promises of that first entry, and it made it a series worth sitting up and taking note of, creating this almost hybrid of exploration, parkour, combat, stealth, and even then the occasional set piece. Jumping back into Assassin's Creed 2, then it's definitely showing its age in the mechanics, honestly. It's fun still, do not get me wrong, but for those that maybe only ever experienced Assassin's Creed on the Switch, you're actually essentially moving backwards at this point to near the oldest game. I'd describe it as the idea is here, but it's still a little bit clunky, and adjusting from perhaps, let's say, a modern entry to this one, it's going to take a little bit of rewiring of the brain. The parkour is what I would describe as a little bit too sticky at times. It kind of suckers you into the scenery. And then the combat, it's single button for the most part outside of grabs. The main issue with the combat, honestly, it just takes a little long to get going, as is kind of traditional with the series, but give it time and it will slowly introduce new moves, like think stealing an opponent's weapon, counter-attacking, dodging attacks, and insta-kills. Stick with the game, and its initial basic setup, it definitely evolves. The world though here, it's made up of small interconnected open world locations with a huge amount of missions to take you all over this world map. It just did a great job of giving us a nice variety in that mission type. Now sure, nearly all of them lead to some sort of, death, but it's everything that you do in between that I enjoyed so much, because that is your choice. You could be stealth, you could kill some people, kill everyone. Maybe you'll find rooftop locations for optimal placement, or even, ride in on the back of a horse with zero subtlety. Missions, though, they tend to jump between combat-heavy, stealth, exploration, and chase, even the occasional set piece. I always did love the carriage chase sequence myself, or the now classic Da Vinci's flying machine as you glide across the world using fire to propel you upwards. Every mission just kind of plays into the game's strengths, blending into a crowd or, kind of stealthing behind someone. It's a game that definitely knows what it's strong at, and it definitely kind of leans into that. Outside of the main story missions then, this is not light on content and very much kicked off what would be known as, I guess, the Creed formula, throwing more content at you than most gamers would ever expect. Think side optional missions, optional assassinations, courier service missions, races, brawls, and that's just the beginning. Do you like collectibles, for example? Cool, think going on the hunt for codex pages. Not your style? How about glyphs? How about treasure? How about feathers? We even get the DLC baked in, which is Templar lairs. That's going to be 3 of them to traverse. The big thing for many, finally, viewpoints. They look as epic as always, but they actually play a role in the game. They unlock a part of the map you couldn't previously see. One thing I always liked, as simple as it is, a very basic management area where you build up your uncle's villa. This is your hideout. It's a small town. You'll be investing your hard-earned and often stolen cash with renovation work to repair a number of areas. What I like though, it's not just visual, but it means you earn money that you can take elsewhere, and you get discounts at the stores you build up, which it won't matter initially honestly, but getting deeper into the game, it will be essential as you buy new weapons or upgrade your armor. As a few simple examples, that's going to be a good way to spend cash as well, especially the armor, because it increases your health bar in the upper left of the screen. Medics will also be another important one as well. There's no regen health here, you actually need stims you carry around. Problems then, and first off again the moments with Desmond in the real world. Dull, minor exploration here, minor puzzles. It slows the game to a snail's pace. Again though, the positive, we rarely see him in this entry, so it's not all that bad. Controls generally then, they haven't aged all that well at times, as we've spoken to. It's essentially showing its age. Also, as remasters go, this is official one only. The gameplay remains the same outside of the now included DLC. I also don't like the fact the game forces you to sign into Ubisoft Connect. My understanding is this is actually required for some of the DLC as well, which seems to be extra weapons and more kind of cosmetic focused. Finally, while it wasn't a part of this particular entry, they have removed the multiplayer, which is a shame because I remember having a blast with that back in the day. This is the solo experiences only, or DLC, and then they stop there. Performance, and I was impressed honestly. It's targeting 30, and for the most part that's exactly where it sits. I did notice a few areas where it seems to increase and drop just slightly, so it appears this is not locked, but it feels honestly better than I did expect. I'm curious now though to see performance with Brotherhood and Revelations. Those entries dialed up the graphical demand of the series, so I'm hoping this entry too is a reflection of things to come. I will be releasing though dedicated performance videos on both of those entries. When that is live, I will link it in the pinned comment down below. I'm also going to be looking forward though to jumping back into the apprentice system in Brotherhood, where you recruit assassins, and then Revelations was most famous for replacing the twin blade temporarily with the hook blade. It's been a pleasure though to explore this world with this character again. I'm just kind of left with gameplay asking myself, who is this for? And the conclusion I've come to is, if you played it back in the day and you don't really hoard a nostalgia, do not come here, there's nothing new for you. If however you never got to play it, this is possibly the best trilogy, the best entries in Assassin's Creed history. And then of course, if you are a massive fan of the series, you should absolutely be jumping in. Graphically then, it's an interesting one. Having played this back when it first released, I did find a few of the changes a little bit jarring, but I gradually got used to them. The texture improvement here is noticeable, and the world generally, it looks better than ever thanks to what is this more vibrant colour palette. That said though, that colour palette, it makes it almost feel a little less, gritty almost in my eyes. I am impressed though overall with performance on the Switch, and it's even better in handheld honestly, which overcomes some of the lower texture details and pixelation that you will find. One thing that does return, something we've seen in all Assassin's Creed games on Switch, that is pop-in. This is like characters in this world and environmental detail as well. When I was in control of the game, I honestly didn't notice all that much, but watching the footage back, it's actually pretty apparent. The big area I think where the pop-in is really noticeable though, it's being the fact it's an older game, the AI was a little less developed, and you'll start to notice crowds just kind of appearing, or two people sitting down on benches in unison. This is two of the main ways you are expected to blend into this world and hide, so it's almost setting up that kind of next escape for you, and when it pops up in front of you, it really does make it noticeable. To close out on visuals then as well, look, I'll add here some of the new character models. They look fantastic, but just occasionally you will come across those where the movement, the facial expressions, well, let's put it this way, look, the upped resolution hasn't done the game any favours at times. I'd be lying though if I didn't at least say though, I did find it entertaining, but probably for the wrong reasons. Look, overall for graphics, I do not think it's a bad looking game at all. In fact, I actually think it stood the test of time, but at the same time, the world is a little emptier, so it makes it a little easier to spot issues, let's say over Black Flag, where the water affects the general world. The general Switch implementation, that one impresses to this day, but it manages to kind of hide so much, just that little bit easier. Audio finally, and it's fantastic. The weapons sound heavy, there's a huge amount happening in this world environmental wise, and the major standout, it's gotta be the voice acting. For its age, 2009, it's incredible quality. This is what I would consider a staple of how you do voice acting the right way. As we started to see these bigger and bigger budgets, it just adds so much life and evolves that story. It's topped off then with what I would consider a Hollywood quality soundtrack that plays heavily into the sense of, danger found in this world. So the final verdict, and again, look, my playtime is with Assassin's Creed 2, so consider this verdict and score solely based around this entry, and I am impressed, plain and simple, but also, I think it's fair to point out here, I am a massive fan of this entry. It's actually my favourite Assassin's Creed out of all of them. Do not come here though for anything new, so to speak. Sure, the DLC is in here, but even if you've never played that DLC, I don't think it adds enough that I would suggest it's a must play if you're not the biggest of fans. That said though, never played it before, absolutely check it out. Sure then, look, it has problems as well. The gameplay at this point was still evolving, and that exploration and combat, it's gonna take some adjustment from you if you've been playing the more modern editions. Also again, finally, there's popping visually, and generally not all of the visual changes work. Still though, this is Ezio, this story, it is fantastic, and it's easily getting a recommendation from me. It's a tribute to a great character, and it is more than deserved. A great 8 out of 10 from me today for Assassin's Creed 2, and hopefully the rest of the package is up to this very same standards. Will you be adding this one to the library then, or holding onto that cash? A shout out then to the patrons of the channel who are going above and beyond to support SwitchCorner. It helps more than you know, so thank you all so much. Then hit subscribe if you love the Switch as much as we all do here. Join our growing family, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.